So for the platform, I'll be using two different colors. First base coat will be USA Gray, and the highlight coat will be light gray. And I'll be using the thinner medium that we used before, 1 drop of thinner medium to 1 drop of paint, and then we'll start spraying. Okay, paint's ready to go. So now I'm just going to start spraying very lightly. I'm not going to concentrate in one area too heavily. Just going to kind of mist it and let the paint and the shut up compressor area killing me. In just a minute for that to quit so I can hear myself think. Just love hearing the compressor in the background. This is a high quality video. Okay, so I'm just spraying it lightly enough to where the pre-shading will start to show through. It's just barely covering it up. And I'm spraying at 15 psi, approximately 5.5 inches away from the piece. Important to keep moving. Don't keep your airbrush in one place at the same, or for too long at the same time, because you'll really start to cover up that underlying shade coat. And we really want, not all of it of course, but most of it to show through. Sorry, I don't have much to say while this is going on. Not a lot to say. Just want to make sure to get a good even coat. If you see any areas where the white is really showing through underneath, you want to cover that up with the USA Gray. Again, while not covering up too much of the underlying shade coat. Okay, turn my compressor off real quick. Okay, I wanted to pause real quick just for a second so we can take a look at how everything is shaping up. Now these interior panels are going to be painted in a metallic paint, and we'll be doing that by hand, won't be airbrushing that. So it doesn't really matter how these look as far as depth of shading goes. What we want to concentrate, well, and the same thing on these. We'll be painting the Aquila by hand also, and so we're not really worried about what the raised panels look like, just the panels below them. So as you can see, the USA gray is starting to lighten up and blend the original white base coat with the pre-shading. So what we want to do now is go into these specific panels, each of the specific panels here, in between all of the rivets, and do some spot highlighting. What we hope to accomplish with that is cleaning up some of the areas where the shading blended a little, or excuse me, bled over a little more than where we want it to be. So we just take the airbrush and come in here, try and tidy this up a little bit. Same thing in here, do the same thing down here, try and get it a little more even, and then when we're done with that, we'll be ready to move on to the next highlighting step. So just wanted to point out a few things. If I'm not making myself clear on what we're doing or what we're trying to accomplish, maybe it will be more evident once we get the next step done. But if not, feel free to post a question, and I'll try to answer it as timely as possible. And let's get back to work. Okay, start cleaning up some of these panel lines. Yay for compressor noise. Okay. Not sure how well you'll be able to see that. But we have just a little bit of the shading showing through. Trying to darken up these panel lines just a little bit, make it blend a little better. When we go in with our next highlight coat, we'll be able to bring out the interior of the panels a little better, lighten them up a little bit. But it's kind of the idea of what we're going for. I'm not going to keep the camera rolling while I do all the rest of it. Just wanted to give you an idea of how it's supposed to look at this stage, and I'll come back and show you whenever this is done. Okay, step one of the base coat is done. The USA gray has been applied. We've got a nice even coat. Still managed to leave some of the dark showing underneath for where we put on the pre-shading. We're not worried about how the Aquilas look or the diamond plating, because we'll be doing those by hand. So the next step is we're going to make a 50-50 mix, 1 part light gray to 1 part USA gray, and then we'll go in and do the same thing. This time we need to be a little more careful. We want to stay inside the panels, leaving some of this USA gray showing, as well as not touching anywhere where what am I trying to say? Anywhere that the pre-shading is still showing through. We want to leave that and only highlight the interior of each of the panels. I want to try and get maybe a little bit of the mix in between the rivets here, or all the rivets really, and then we will go from there. Okay, so I have my light gray and USA gray mix ready to go. Again, we're going to try and stay only in the panels in the centers to keep the shading up. I'm spraying at 12 psi. Probably could go a little lower, but I think that this will be fine. I'm just going to try and concentrate on the center panels. So I managed to fill up the memory, so let's try and continue where I left off. Still staying inside the panel lines. I know this has to be incredibly boring just watching me spray, but I don't have anything really significant to talk about. So I'm going to finish up this last panel, and then I'll do the rest off camera so you don't have to. Oh, I swear, this compressor is almost as bad as my old camera. They're driving me nuts. Okay, now as far as getting in between the rivets, we want to get fairly close, a little bit of air, a little bit of paint. You don't want to go overboard. You want to try not to let it overlap onto the other panel because it's going to wipe out some of your appreciating. You can see here I actually managed to do that. These interior parts, we're going to do some lining on those by hand, so it would probably be best to spray from this direction because it doesn't matter if the shading on the inside gets wiped out. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this off camera, and then I will be back once we're done. Okay, that's it for the highlight coat. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this, but that is it. And that's all we're going to be doing at this stage. I considered going with a straight highlight of light gray, or maybe even going a 2-to-1 mix with the USA gray, but the way it looks now, I'm fairly pleased with it, and I think adding a little more bright to it just kind of would defeat the purpose. So feel free to do that if you're following along and wanting to do this yourself. That's completely up to you. You have to see what you like and what you don't like and go from there. But for me, this is good enough, and we'll be moving on.
So now that we're done with the airbrush work on the platform, it's time to move on to the legs, base, feet, however you want to look at it. We're painting each of those, and we'll be painting the battlements that go on the outside as well, and also the small interior pieces for those battlements. So the colors we'll be using are Chem Light Green and Gunship Green, as well as Duck Egg Green. For the first base coat, I'm going to be using a 1-to-1 mix of the Gunship Green and the Chem Light Green, as well as 1 drop of thinning medium per each drop of these. So one drop of this, 1 drop of this, 1 drop of this. So if we do 10 drops, 10 drops, 10 drops, mix in our cup, then pour it into the siphon feed on the airbrush. So I'll go ahead and get that mixed up and we'll start spraying. Okay, so I have my trusty chopstick out again. I'll be doing the same thing that I did before. Got my paint mix ready to go, spraying at 12 psi, and here we go. This is kind of a tricky angle to be able to get it all on camera, so please bear with me. Doing the same things before. Light coats to begin with, and then we'll go back and fill in the detail later. There's really no perfect way to do this. You just want to get all of the areas that are still light covered with the green. Try not to cover up too much of the black at this point, so you see just how much you want to. Oh man, really annoying with this whole compressor thing. So because I don't have a lot to say while I'm doing this, there's not a whole lot to be said. Do me a favor and leave a comment down in the section below if you would rather me just maybe speed this up, since I'm not saying anything anyway. Speed it up 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, whatever, to make it go a little faster. Or if it's fine the way it is now, where you're just watching me spray in real time. Okay, I think that's good enough for the base coat on this. Okay, wait a minute. Pull towards me, stay in the view. Okay. Just a little bit under there. So hopefully you can see that all of the messy black garbage from where we did the pre-shading, you can see that it really doesn't matter how bad it was. All it's doing is giving us some more shading, and then in our in the next coats that we do, we'll be bringing out some more of these panels to give us some more depth, a little more highlight, and it'll really blend together well. So that's it for this one, and now I'm going to move on to one of the battlements so you can see that, and then we'll be done with this section. Okay, let's see if I can manage to keep this one in the frame. It's important to get inside the windows, make sure that you don't forget those. I have done that before, so speaking from experience, it's really tough once you have a model completely done and then realize that you missed an entire section. So just keep that in mind. Turn it to all angles, and once you get done, look at it at every angle to make sure that you aren't missing something. It's much easier to fix it now than to have to try and fix it later. And I will be flipping this around once the other side dries. Just going to get as much as I can at the moment. I really should buy a larger compressor also, so this thing doesn't kick on as often. I have no complaints about the compressor itself. It's fantastic, and it was not expensive at all, but just think I need a bigger one for longer spraying times. So how am I doing? Still in frame? Yeah, it looks that way. Okay, I think that's good for that one. And then we will do one of these small ones. This is real simple. And it's not completely necessary to get these sides because they'll be hidden once it's assembled. But I like to hit them anyway just to make sure that there's no primer showing through. And that's good for that one. So that's it. That is our first base coat, and now we'll move on to the first highlight.